Hi everybody, this is Agnes from Sediment, and today let's discover and taste some great alternatives to the mighty Nebbiolo grape, the one behind iconic Barolo and Barbaresco wines. I assume that for each of us, Nebbiolo might evoke different associations, therefore we might think of different alternatives to this grape. In wine literature, it is often compared to Pinot Noir, and they do share seductive charms, especially when it comes to their perfume and flavors. Maybe another similarity between the two grapes is their pale color. Neither grape is particularly capable of producing deeply inky wines. But for me personally, Nebbiolo is highly structured grape, with high levels of acidity and powerful mouth-coating tannins. Where Pinot Noir has mouth-watering acidity and it seems almost part of the fruit itself, Nebbiolo's acidity is more like a wall, structured and firm, monolithic. And then there are the tannins, high, powerful, and sometimes even astringent. Even amongst seasoned wine professionals, sometimes these tannins can be too much. They sit at the complete opposite end of the scale compared to the gentle, velvety tannins of Pinot Noir. Therefore, today I want to talk about wines that not only offer similar flavor charms to those of Nebbiolo, but also similar structure. So I will be excluding Pinot Noir from the list. Also, despite Barolos and Barbaresco's ever-climbing prices, we will not necessarily be talking about better value here, at least not guaranteed better value. The wines, grapes, and regions I have selected today can offer better price, sometimes, but it really depends on which wines you compare. And it is safe to say that all the wines I will be tasting today fall into the more premium category. But if, just like me, you love Nebbiolo and its various expressions, why not simply stick to it, you might ask? Because wine represents such a beautiful and truly diverse universe, and it would be a shame not to explore it more. Therefore, today I want to highlight 4 great alternatives to the Nebbiolo grape. Okay, you might have noticed that I have actually 5 bottles here, 5 glasses of wine on the table. It is because we're going to start with the very Nebbiolo grape itself in its Barolo expression. If we are looking for great alternatives to the Nebbiolo, we have to taste Nebbiolo first and know what it is like. Okay. As expected, and if you are not new to my channel, you will know that Nebbiolo cannot develop really deeply inky colored wines, and this is pale garnet. And it is just so beautifully kind of fruit driven on the nose. Nebbiolo might not be the fruitiest of all the grapes out there, but I think that is one of its charms. It is very seductive and it kind of adds a lot of florals as well, like dried rose petals and potpourri, some turned earth, and forest floor. But this is towards kind of red berry style. But still, we have some of that kind of rose petal and we have some of that black tar here as well, some of that earthiness. Really perfumed and beautiful wine. Let's taste it. I mean, I knew I was tasting Nebbiolo and still the acidity kicked me and then the tannin came. But to be completely honest, the acidity here is kind of fresh and lively and juicy. It is not maybe as high as sometimes in other Nebbiolo wines you can see. Similarly with tannin, I think that the winemaker probably has tried to kind of calm the Nebbiolo tannin down a little bit here. Or maybe I have just grown to used to it. And it does not feel as high or mouth coating or grippy anymore to me. But overall, it seems kind of softer, kind of more polished tannin on the palate. And then it is this acidity and the tannin that kind of makes the frame for all the fruit to kind of stay and linger on the palate. It is also kind of really these strawberry and raspberry and sour cherry driven kind of palate. Beautiful wine, nice way to start our tasting. I will give this wine 93 points. Okay, let's move to wine number 2. And here we are going to start to talk about the great alternatives to the Nebbiolo. And believe it or not, one of the greatest alternatives, at least in my view, is Sangiovese. And Sangiovese is actually a lateral of Nebbiolo. And the reason for this is, similarly as Nebbiolo, it has really high acidity level. And similarly as Nebbiolo, it has quite high tannin levels. And similarly as Nebbiolo, it does not deliver really deeply colored and inky wines. So sometimes I mix these wines in blind tasting. I always thought that I love Nebbiolo so much that I could never kind of miss this grape variety in the blind tasting in the exam. But recently I was practicing for my exam and I mixed Sangiovese and Nebbiolo together. So it only makes sense that if you love these highly structured, beautiful, full-bodied Barolos and Barbarescos, you should definitely try Brunellos and Vino Nobile, and you should definitely try Chianti Classico. Maybe these wines tend to be not as full-bodied or not as structured and maybe more acidity-driven and fruit-driven, but I think stylistically they can be very similar. I have chosen wine here from Altesino, Rosso di Montalcino, and this is maybe towards the fruitier, kind of lighter style of Sangiovese, lighter expression. So let's taste it. Okay, so this wine is 2022 vintage, so it is only 3 years old, but color-wise, it seems a bit older. So here we have some of that bricky kind of hint. And on the nose, it is more resolved, kind of crushed cherry and riper strawberry character. But there's also some of that kind of earthiness, some like animalistic element like horse saddle or leather, which you not necessarily always find in Sangiovese, because for me, Sangiovese usually tends to be more fruit, sour cherry driven. But this is slightly different in style. Let's taste it. Okay. So here I would say that acidity is kind of more or better integrated or part of the fruit or part of the wine altogether, as opposed to wine number 1 or the Barolo that we tasted before. And actually it is just so interesting because how many times it has already been that I kind of give this my opinion or maybe some of the theory, and then when I taste it is completely opposite. So here I would say that it was the Sangiovese that maybe had kind of fuller boned structure, and also something that I really enjoyed and maybe indicated that this wine is coming from Montalcino area was the ripeness and sweetness of the fruit at the end. It is something that I usually find very specific to Brunello wines, and this is simply Rosso. So they usually dictate a bit higher yields, maybe not as high concentration, but this was really beautiful on its own, and it could feel on the palate like this baby Brunello. So overall, really nice example of the wine. If we are comparing this wine to the Barolo that I tasted before, maybe Barolo seems a bit more savory, more kind of tighter, and this seems more open and opulent. But I think in this very moment, this is just the expression of terroir, because Chianti Classico can sometimes be tight and really focused as well. I will give this wine 91 points. Okay, so now let's move to wine number 3. And with wine number 3, we are still in Italy, although some might say that it is country on its own, and that's Sicily. And from Sicily, we have Girolamo Russo, Etna Rosso. And in Etna Rosso, I specifically want to talk about grape variety, which is Nerello Mascalese. I have been guilty to mix this grape in a blind tasting with Nebbiolo on several occasions now. So the quality is really high. So overall, this grape produces enormously high quality wines. And similarly, as with Nebbiolo, you will see it does not show really deep color. I would even say that this is, from the Nebbiolo and Sangiovese, this is the palest colored wine until the moment that we've tasted. And similarly, as with Nebbiolo, we will have really high mouth coating tannins. So structure-wise, Nerello Mascalese can seem very much like Nebbiolo. So this wine is much more fruit-driven, kind of, it is just so intense cherry on the nose. It is also showing some, ripe blackcurrant, strawberries and wild raspberries. It is definitely more fruit-driven than wines 1 and wines 2. And I said that Nebbiolo can be quite floral as well. This is maybe something that I should keep in my mind next time I'm doing blind tastings. Nerello Mascalese does not seem so floral. It shows kind of similar fruit profile as Nebbiolo, as Sangiovese, like those sour cherries, those red berries, but it is not as floral. But the nose, it is just so seductive. It is still very, very beautiful. To be honest with you, it kind of shows some similarities to the nose of Pinot Noir. Let's taste it. Okay, so the tannins here, they are elevated. They are mouth coating, but there is a finesse to them. They are maybe not as coarse or as grippy. They are more velvetina style. But maybe it is my mind playing tricks on me, because it could also be due to the fact that I tasted Nebbiolo and Sangiovese in the beginning. Overall, I would say that this is more lively, more fruit-driven, and kind of lighter style of the wines that I've tasted until this moment. Yes, I love the tannin structure here. I think it is just so beautiful. For those of you who sometimes think that Barolo can be too much or too kind of full-bodied or maybe too structured, I think this is great alternative because it offers the same kind of level of excitement, beautiful, lively, mouth-watering acidity, and really kind of finely grained, well-structured tannins. I will give this wine 94 points. It is a stunner. Let's move to wine number 4. With wine number 4, we are actually leaving Italy and, oh my God, this is heavy bottle, which we do not like. But we are moving to Greece, and this is Alfa Estate. And the grape variety, I hope you have heard about it, is Xinomavro. Okay, so Xinomavro is local, authentic grape variety of Greece. And if you can see the color, similarly as with Barolo, as with Rosso di Montalcino, and with Nerello Mascalese, we have pale color. However, this grape is known to have really high mouth coating tannins and high acidity, which is why I have added this to the list. Let's taste it. On the nose, it is completely different story now. We are towards kind of riper blue and black fruit world. There's also something earthy, like black olive or olive tapenade or like herbs. There is something kind of forest-like or forest floor-like as well. There's also something like, I don't want to say pyrazine-like, but like green olive, maybe like fresh sage or rosemary. Yes, the first I nosed this wine, it seemed really kind of fruit-driven, but then it opened up all these kind of herbs and earthy characteristics. But still, you have all those blue and black berries in the background. It is not lying. Let's taste it. Okay, this wine actually comes from, you will be surprised, this wine comes from kind of more continental climate. You would assume that Greece do not really have kind of distinctly continental climates because of all the, islands that it is created from. But this is higher up also in the elevation. And I think when we talk about the structure here, it is the acidity that kind of plays the main role. I kind of feel this really beautiful, mouth-watering, kind of really high acidity that lifts the fruit, and on the palate it does not seem ripe or kind of black or blue at all. It seems this really kind of red fruit driven. And tannin here, it is actually kind of beautifully done. I love the tannin here. And I think it is also really old wines, like 100-year-old wines. And if I'm not mistaken on their original roots, I'm not sure, because this is kind of sandy area and the phylloxera could not survive here. I have read some people saying that Xinomavro can be very difficult in the vineyard, in the winery, and also difficult to taste. But I do not feel it that way. But maybe it is just the style that I have always enjoyed and loved so much, and it just does not seem difficult to me. The tannins here are beautifully integrated within the wine. They do not seem kind of out of place. It is just the acidity that lifts the wine. And still talking to you, I feel my saliva coming back again and again and again. Even though it might seem kind of fuller and opulent style of Xinomavro, it is because of that acidity, it seems really slim and focused. I will give this wine 92 points. And now we are traveling to France. I also want to share the bottle. We are going to Provence. And majority of you might think of Provence of this pink wine production area, but actually it has so much more to offer. And today we are focusing on Bandol. In Bandol, they also make some beautiful structured rosé wines, but I think it is their red wines that really needs attention. And now this is going to be the interesting part, or at least it seems interesting to me. This is the only wine that has deep inky color. So if you are looking for wines that may not stain your teeth and lips, this might not be it. Then you should go for Nebbiolo, for Sangiovese, for Nerello Mascalese, for Xinomavro. This is Mourvèdre based, and Mourvèdre usually develops deeply colored wines. And some of you might think or want to compare Mourvèdre and Bandol with Bordeaux, and I definitely would not argue with that. But I think overall, this grape variety, which is around 75% here because it can be blended with Grenache, with Syrah, with Carignan and Cinsault as well. But overall, I think this grape variety, structure-wise and also flavor-wise, can be really similar to Barolo. And structure-wise, it is the tannins that are high here. It is the acidity that is really high here. And similarly, as with Nebbiolo, Mourvèdre is not the most fruit-driven grape variety. It usually gives this kind of forest floor and earthy notes, you know, black, dumb earth, and maybe even, you know, some sweaty horse or leather. And this wine actually, it does show really ripe blueberries, blackberries. It kind of shows that it has seen sun a lot, you know, sunbathing. But at the same time, you have these Mediterranean herbs like garrigue on the back, somewhere there playing hide and seek. And it is also unique that Bandol must be aged minimum 18 months in wood. I think it is one of the longest requirements in France when we talk about aging. And now we have like these kind of black olives, kind of tomato leaf maybe. Naturally, I love this wine for Lost because I do not want to talk like black teeth with you all the video, so let's taste it now. Wow. Stylistically, Bandol has changed a little bit. There are, of course, producers who want to make their wines more approachable in their youth. So maybe they're cutting back of the tannin, maybe they're trying to, you know, make the acidity more integrated or kind of towards the lower side. But I think this is a beautiful example of these chalky, kind of mouth coating, beautiful tannins of Mourvèdre. And the acidity still sits on my palate, but thanks It's a good winemaker. It is not just acidity, it is kind of part of this really ripe, beautiful kind of pomegranate fruit. And the nose actually also reminds a little bit of the pomegranate. Wow, I think that this wine kind of shows more mouth coating or firmer tannin structure than Barolo that I tasted on the very beginning. Could it be that this is more structured, tighter type of wine? I will give this wine 92 points. So, can I compliment myself a little bit? I think I have selected really great alternatives to the Nebbiolo grape and the mighty famous Barolo and Barbaresco wines. So if you feel a little bit more adventurous, go and seek out these wines. I think they are amazing. And also what I think is really interesting is that we are talking about maybe less discovered or less discussed grape varieties, at least when it comes to Nerello, Xinomavro. You can rarely find this grape outside Greece. And Mourvèdre, which is actually Monastrell in Spain. And overall, I think that it is these authentic, these native grape varieties that currently can offer great discoveries, great gems, and definitely are worth exploring. Thank you, and please let me know in the comments what are your thoughts on Nebbiolo grape alternatives, or maybe you think there are no great alternatives to this epic grape variety. And as I told you, Nebbiolo's lateral is Sangiovese, so make sure to watch my other video, Nebbiolo versus Sangiovese.